Welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson, and we got a couple things I want to bring you up to date on, and then we have a special guest joining us in a little bit. First of all, tonight there is a special opportunity for you to hear all of the candidates running for the Republican nomination to run up against sitting U.S. Senator Jeff Merkley. All of the 6 major candidates will be in town tonight for a special forum, and it's going to be held at the Jackson County Library there in Medford, or here in Medford. And I've been given the honor to moderate that event. So if you can make it out, it'll be at 6:30. I would suggest maybe getting there a little early to get a seat. And it'll be a great opportunity to hear all of the candidates ask or answer a variety of questions. And again, that's being hosted by the Jackson County Republican Central Committee. And that'll be tonight, 6:30. At the library in downtown Medford, and hope to see you there. Coming up in a few moments, we're going to have Jason Conger join us. He's going to be, or he is one of the candidates vying for that nomination. We'll be talking to him coming up in just a few moments. And another thing I want to remind you of, coming up Thursday at 11 o'clock in the morning, there's a special opportunity for area pastors or representatives from your church to come and be with myself and others, and David Crow from Restore America will be providing lunch. And we'd love to see you there. This is an opportunity to learn all about the do's and don'ts of voter registration in your church, and in particular how important it is during this upcoming election cycle that we get Christians who are eligible to be registered, to get them registered, and most importantly, to get them out and vote. This is something that you can do. It's totally legal to do this in your church. And I think when you see David Crow's presentation, he has a PowerPoint. It's very, very powerful. And you see the PowerPoint of not only the history, some of our U.S. history, and then how it ties into the church, and then how it ties into the statistics as it relates to the state of Oregon. As we go into this election cycle, it is very critical. Did you know that in the state of Oregon, we have 300,000 people who are eligible to vote? These are evangelical Christians who are eligible to vote that didn't vote, didn't register. If we can change that by 10%, just 10%, you'd sway just about any election in this state. And how important it is in these days in which we live. This all sounds political. And that's how a lot of people would say we can't get involved because of that. It's nonsense. There is a civic responsibility as much as there is a Christian responsibility to be good stewards of the resources and those things that God has put into our hands and be entrusted with. And part of that is your civic responsibility to be good citizens, to register to vote, and to vote. And it's very critical that you understand going into the primary season, which is in May here in the state of Oregon, that you understand who these candidates are, what they stand for, and what they represent. So, pastors, let me encourage you. If you got a letter from us, would you call that number in the letter and let us know that you're coming so that we can make sure we have enough to provide for lunch? And if you can't make it, would you appoint somebody from your church to go? Or perhaps a board member, or maybe you and a couple of your board members could come and listen. And I'm telling you, you will be inspired. It is a wonderful opportunity to learn the facts. So I encourage you, if you can, call the number on that letter and get to us as soon as you can, that you can be there on Thursday at 11 o'clock, and it's going to be over at the First Church of the Nazarene. So we ask you to be a part of that. All right, again, reminding you tonight at 6:30, however, the Republican candidates for the Republican nomination for to run up against sitting U.S. Senator Jeff Merkley will be tonight at 6:30. There at the library in Medford, and we certainly encourage you to be a part of that. Well, I'm honored to have with us today one of the candidates who's going to be there tonight, and he's already making the media rounds, but now he has arrived at the media source, the Dove. We got Jeff Conger with us this morning. Hi, Jeff. How are you?
Jason. It's Jason. I'm running against Jeff Merkley, though, so that's a good association.
Well, I should have known that, my son. Yeah. How you doing?
I'm fantastic.
You're making the rounds.
I am. I'm making the rounds, trying to rush around. I was very disciplined, by the way. As I walked in, you didn't look away from the camera or anything, or break stride. I know I'm with a real veteran.
Nice to have you, Jason. And you guys are all in town. Look forward to tonight. But I wanted to have some time with you and hear where you're going with this your candidacy and this campaign. How's it going for you? You've been in it how long now?
Well, we officially announced October 15th. Okay. It seems like that was October 15th of 1972 right now, but it's going really well. It's a lot of work. It's a big state. I mean, I know I'm saying the obvious. Running statewide is challenging. Yeah. But it's also very rewarding.
Good for you.
You see. Lots of communities. You see the good and the bad. Mm-hmm. You see communities that are suffering and some that are doing well. You meet a lot of people and learn a lot about our state and the people of the state, and that's all good things.
Well, I've heard nothing but good things about your campaign. What led you to do this?
Well, I think with most candidates who are challenging an incumbent or who intend to challenge an incumbent, you start with dissatisfaction with the incumbent, and see the need to replace the person who holds the office now, who's representing us, which is Jeff Merkley, and certainly that's the case with me. And then it's probably a sense that I have something to offer. I know how to win tough races. I've done it, and this is going to be a tough race. So, and the bigger motivation for me, though, is I see people, just average, everyday Oregonians, people who are working, trying to support their families, thinking about, how am I going to retire? How am I going to pay for my kids' college? And I think, by and large, they feel left behind. Mm-hmm. They feel like nobody's out there fighting for them. Mm-hmm. And I really want them to know someone I will stand up for them and represent them, fight for them, and win.
I'm sure, Jason, you'd have to admit that the country's in a mess. And we have a sitting senator that has voted for just about everything that put us in that mess.
Absolutely.
I mean, I went into, with all due respect to Senator Merkley's voting record, I went in and looked around and I thought, he supported everything that the president has wanted, and even some things that are even further left than that. And you kind of go, what's he really done for the state of Oregon that has improved it?
Well, I haven't found anything yet. I've looked too, Perry, and it's it's like I don't know. It's strange. This is a time, obviously, where we've had a real hard time economically. People are struggling, and you would think there would be, some motivation on the part of our U.S. senator to try to do some things that would help in Oregon. And he has the most liberal voting record in the United States Senate,
right?
Which is not consistent with Oregon. Oregon is not the most liberal state. Right. The people of Oregon are not the most liberal in the country, and you don't see. I mean, I'm not positive, but I don't think he's passed a single bill in almost 6 years in office.
No, I don't think he has either. But at the end of the day, we're in a mess. They have to be held accountable.
Absolutely.
And I think that, if you can take Obamacare on down to cover Oregon to all the issues, and I do want you to highlight some of the concerns you have, but
sure.
He's got to be replaced, in my opinion. He's got to be. What's he done for families?
Right.
What's he done for traditional values? What's he done for the economy of Oregon? I mean, can you name anything that he could hang his hat on and call it good legislation?
Well, a lot of things that hurt, nothing that has helped, not that I can see.
Of all the issues out there, and there's a lot of them.
Sure.
Healthcare is hitting us right in the pocket. We have the economy. The culture and all of its issues seem to be upside down. How would you prioritize those in your campaign? How do you see the most important thing as a U.S. Senator down to the least?
So the most important thing is not the most important thing. It's the most immediate, and that's to get rid of Obamacare. Right. My concern is that the longer the law stays in place, the more of it becomes goes into effect, causes harm, but also changes the healthcare system. Right. And so if we wait too long to get that law taken out of statute, it will be much harder on the system to get it out. The system will adapt, the healthcare system will adapt to the law, and then it becomes a lot harder. It's got to be done.
Have you done the research that can it be done away with? Can it be removed? Can we defund Obamacare? Can we get rid of it?
Well, the legislature writes the laws, as you know, and if Republicans hold majorities in the House and Senate after the 2014 elections, which I believe we will, then there's no reason we can't change the law, which just means taking the statute out. As you know, it's certainly possible to do that. Now, I think we need to replace it with some good healthcare reform that will, bend the cost curve and do some of the things that we all agree need to be done, but not be as vast, far-reaching, costly, and top-down driven as Obamacare.
All right, I got to take a break here in just a second. Before we do, where would you be on the deficit spending or raising the debt limit?
Well, it's first of all, you can't if you allow constant debt limit increases, then you're part of the problem, right? And so there needs to be, though, a focused effort on balancing the budget. It's going to take a couple of years, but it certainly can be done, and then you don't have to raise the debt limit anymore. You can start paying it down.
Okay. All right, we'll be right back, and our special guest this morning is Jason Conger. He's one of the candidates, and he'll be a part of the forum tonight, and we hope that maybe you can make it out to that. We'll take a quick break, and we'll come back and ask him a ton of questions in just a moment.
Hi, I'm Paulina, and I work at theDove TV. Did you know that when you support theDove TV, you have a profound impact, not only in our community, but around the world? It's your continued support that takes the inspiration and hope in the programs we produce and makes them available to the thousands of people who are watching these videos online every week. Help bring encouragement and hope to our valley and beyond by making a secure online donation today at our website, thedove.us.
Okay, we're back, and delighted to have in the studio with us today Jason Conger. He's one of the Republican candidates running for the Republican nomination to go up against sitting U.S. Senator Jeff Merkley. And of course, here comes May, and that's the primary month in the state of Oregon. And I have to tell you, folks, primaries are very, very important. As you know, as a candidate,
absolutely,
I can tell you as former chairman, a lot of people just don't get involved in the primaries, and yet that's where the big decisions are really made. So you can get a good candidate up against the other candidate in the fall. We got a list of things. Let me just go through them real quickly, and forgive me if we go too fast here, but I want to and by the way, you can come tonight and you can hear a little bit longer answers. Where are you on the life issue and the abortion issue?
Pro-life.
Are you?
Yep, have been for a lot of years. I grew up in a liberal household. I thought I was pro-choice, and then I had a son, and my wife's always been 100% pro-life, and over time, I thought about it a lot. I think it's a really important issue, and I do understand why people disagree, but I'm openly pro-life, and always have been since I've been in politics.
Good. Where are you with the Second Amendment issue?
Also a kind of plain language, original intent view of the Constitution, including the Second Amendment. And the language of the Second Amendment is pretty plain, pretty apparent. So I'm a strong supporter of Second Amendment rights.
How do you balance environmental issues with conservation issues? How do you see that argument?
Well, it's interesting. I don't think the two are always in tension. I'll give you an example. A very important issue to a lot of rural Oregon is active management of our federal forests. Between Bend and Salem, I have to drive through the B&B complex fire over a decade later. It's not regenerating. It was obviously very, very hot, burned down into the ground, killed everything, and it's not growing back, other than right next to the road where all the stuff scatters off the road, and apparently that helps trees grow. So I think there's a way, and I believe this sounds almost cliche, but there's a way to balance our needs to have wood and jobs and other resources with our desire to have clean water, clean air. Those things are not mutually exclusive. Now, it does require good stewardship, but good stewardship is not letting it burn. that has, I think, does more damage to wildlife, does more damage to the ecology of the forest than our past timber harvest practices.
Do you think the state is very capable of managing its own resources, so to speak? Is that there's this threat that the Fed would come in and shut more down for who knows what reason?
So you're asking about like the state-owned forest or the state regulation?
Well, I know we have state-owned
forest.
forest, we have federal-owned forest.
Yeah.
But it seems to me that the people are shut out on the federal level from making any kind of decisions. It's whatever the what would you do to say, hey, wait a minute, we can manage this just fine. There's some resources there, and everybody benefits from it.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing you can do is try to create more local control, and certainly, as conservatives, that's something that I think pretty much universally we think is better. The closer it is to, the closer the decisions are made to the actual people who are there, who live there, the better. And I think we could do that in a variety of ways. Obviously there's the O&C lands bills, and there's some effort to say, let's have the state involved in managing those federal lands. That might be one version of a solution, or it might be that decisions are made through local bodies and then applied on federal lands. Or lands could be turned over to some federal lands could be turned over to the state. However it occurs, there needs to be more active management of those lands, and it is critical. And it's critical not just because of the ecology, which we already talked about, but it's critical because communities in Oregon, rural Oregon, southern Oregon especially, don't have a tax base because the federal government owns so much of the land within the counties and doesn't pay taxes. And we need those jobs, we need people working, we need the wood, we need the value-added manufacturing that comes with it, and we need the tax revenue to support schools and law enforcement and local communities.
All right, a couple of other issues. We just had a call about GMOs. Where would you be on the GMO argument? Well,
it's interesting. I'm not a huge fan of GMOs. I'm actually, I don't know whether it's a little libertarian in this or what, but I have a lot of suspicion about the impact of things like GMOs and chemicals and other things that are just in our day-to-day life now, in our modern life, on health, especially health of developing, kids. So I have a lot of concerns about it. At the same time, I also know that GMOs are pretty critical to provide food, and disrupting our larger food supply is not prudent. You don't want people to starve. So where am I on GMOs? Very suspicious, but also very cautious about how they get regulated as our understanding of them develops. I'd like to see, a lot more scientific knowledge about what the impact of GMOs might be, and I'd like to see. But again, I don't think the solution is to take them out of the food, out of the production of food, en masse. I don't think that will work.
Immigration, big issue. It looked like the House is not going to produce an immigration bill going into this election cycle. Probably politically wise at the moment, but where are you with that?
Well, I think amnesty has not worked well in the past, and it is probably, amnesty is not something we should do this time. The implication of amnesty is it's okay to break the law, and I don't think we should send that message whether we agree with the law as it is now or not. But clearly we have millions of people in this country who are undocumented. Some of them are paying taxes, but they're doing it, under a fraudulent Social Security number. And they're performing jobs, they have lives, they have homes here. So something has to be done to deal with that population, and it's not kicking them back across the border. Somebody said that, and I tried to imagine what it would look like for 10 million people to be forced out of the country, and I can't imagine it. Of course not. It's not going to happen. So we need longer term work visas. I think we need to offer work visas to people who are here illegally if they can find a sponsor and they don't have a criminal background. And a sponsor could be a church, could be an employer, anything like that. but I think that's probably the path that we need to take, and certainly you hear from a lot of businesses that can't find the labor that they need, and not just farms, but other businesses without that labor force. And so there's and bottom line is we're a nation of immigrants.
Yeah.
So in the end, we have to deal with this problem.
Secure the borders?
Oh, first step has to be secure the borders. Right. And it's the same issue as amnesty, by the way. If you don't do that, you're creating these criminal enterprises, the guns, drugs, and people movers, coyotes, I guess they're called, that transport things and people into the country illegally. If you secure the border, you cut down on that. If you create a work visa kind of regime that allows people to get into the country if they're coming here for legal purposes and to work in a job where we need the labor force, then they won't need a coyote, right? They can come into the country and go about their business. A
couple quick questions before we run out of time. Sure. We don't seem to have a foreign policy. Can anybody tell us what our foreign policy is anywhere in the world today? I mean, I don't know what it is. I don't know what we're doing in Ukraine. I don't know what we're doing in Iran. I don't know what we're doing with Egypt, Lebanon, and the list goes on. We don't know. Afghanistan, we don't know what our foreign policy is.
Yeah.
We do know that we have a very strong ally in the middle of all of that, and that is Israel. Mm-hmm. What's your feeling about the United States' support of Israel?
Well, Israel has been our strongest ally in the Middle East for many, many years. They are faced with existential threats from their neighbors, but particularly from Iran now. For a nuclear Iran would be overtly a threat to Israel's existence and its people's existence. So we need to be absolutely clear that Israel has that special ally-friend relationship that we have with a few countries, and that we will absolutely stand with them, stand beside them, support them in protecting their borders. I mean, they're a democratic country. Mm-hmm. They're a freedom-loving country, and they are a strong ally and an important ally in the Middle East. And we need to be much better about communicating, with our adversaries or those who are not our friends in the international community, who we stand with, and we need to be a lot more decisive in dealing with these with countries. I mean, what we're doing right now is empowering and encouraging our enemies, and I think has resulted in Russia feeling empowered to invade Ukraine.
We have. Under this administration, Jeff Merkley has certainly supported it. Mm-hmm. The cutback of our military, the funding of our military. What's your response to that?
Well, I think in today's world, we run the risk of focusing on terrorist-type activities, on more surgical strike capabilities, and we certainly have moved in that direction, given what we've been confronted with. But now we see China and Russia being aggressive, and they are conventional war-type countries. I mean, they have massive armaments and the ability to project power. We need to be very cautious about diminishing our conventional warfare capabilities in that kind of an environment, and we need to be. So I don't support the administration's cuts of defense, in part because what it does, it puts our soldiers and our people in jeopardy in the world if we weaken ourselves, and it further encourages our enemies.
Well, Jason, look forward to having you tonight.
Yeah,
and it'll be fun. It'll be 6:30 this evening at the Medford Library, and you're more than welcome to come and be a part of it. And how do people get a hold of you and your campaign if they want to get involved and support you?
The easiest way is to go to our website, which is congerfororegon.com.
congerfororegon.com. That's the simple way.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming in, and best to you.
Thanks, Barry.
Okay, we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Daniel, and I work at theDove TV. You know, compared to Portland, Seattle, and LA, Medford might be considered a small market, but at theDove, we're excited about the opportunity to make a big impact right here in our community. And you help make that happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us now by making a secure online donation at our website, theDove.us, or by phoning 541-776-5368.
Welcome back. Well, for quite some time, we've been encouraging you to pray for Saeed Abedini. He's the Christian pastor inside Iran that has been imprisoned. He's been moved from one prison to another, and he has been really tortured in many ways, physically, psychologically. We have been asking you to write your congressman about Pastor Abedini. We've been asking you to pray for he and his family and his wife and beautiful children, and also to continue to lobby Congress to do something about his release. Today, a very rare and very special opportunity to have with us his wife. Naghmeh is with us today, and to give us an update on her husband. Naghmeh, nice to have you. Good to see you.
Good morning. It's good to be here. Thank you for continuing to pray for my husband and spreading the word. I appreciate it.
Well, we're just stunned that our administration is not doing more to get your husband released. But give us an update. Have you heard from him recently?
He was moved. He was hospitalized a few weeks ago, but there's been seems to be some confusion or some conflict internally in Iran, because there's been times where they've tried to treat him, but then there's guards that have come in and shackled him and been really harsh with him. And as you mentioned, he's been, especially early on in his arrest, he went through a lot of torture and abuse and being told that he should renounce his faith and return to Islam. And so it's been a hard journey. There's been a year since doctors inside the prison and outside have said he needs surgery, he needs to be treated, but as of today, he has not had treatment yet.
What's he need surgery for?
Well, especially the first, I would say 4 or 5 months when he was going through a lot of the abuse and torture, when they were telling him to deny his faith. He went through a lot of beatings where he got internal injuries and he got internal bleeding. And those are the injuries that happen, especially the first few months, but actually have continued few months throughout the year. There's been other beatings, but the first few 5 months were pretty intense, and that's where he developed a lot of internal injuries and bleedings.
Now, he's in prison for his Christian faith. Was he proselyting his Christian faith? I mean, what got him in prison?
Well, he converted in the year 2000. He was a pretty strong Muslim from a very strong Muslim family. He was in Iran and when he converted, and born and raised in Iran. And at that time, there was a government that was not threatened by Christianity, and a more moderate government under a president named Khatami, who was before Ahmadinejad. And he was being trained under a government-approved building church, an actual church that government monitors. And at that time, they allowed for these Bible school students, including Saeed, to start these house churches. And when Ahmadinejad came, he said he will uproot. The new president came in 2005. He said he would uproot Christianity from Iran. And that's when the Bible school was shut down. And Saeed stopped all house church activity. Now they've arrested him. And now that they've arrested him, since he has been back and forth in Iran since 2009, working on an orphanage with the Iranian government has gone back to 13, 14 years earlier when Saeed first converted, and his conversion was recognized by the Iranian government. It was the house churches were actually allowed. They've gone back there and said, well, the house church networks that was started was actually a threat to the national security of Iran. Saeed has conducted soft war, and they unfortunately have given him 8 years in prison, which actually could be longer because he's led people to Christ in prison, and they've threatened that they would add on more years because of that. Wow.
And how are you communicating to your children what's happening to their father?
You know, I try not to say a lot of the negatives. I told them, oh, Daddy, we have good news. He was taken to the hospital and we're going to treat him. And so they were happy that he was out of the prison, and they were telling his friends, Daddy is out of prison. And so they feel like he's not a prisoner anymore in some way. But I don't try to say the negative and the beatings and the abuse, but I just tell them, and they say it too, we're proud of Daddy for standing up for his faith. not only has he stood up, but he's shared Christ with his desperate cellmates who are hopeless.
Wow, that is wonderful.
And so, I tell him we're proud of him, and we pray for him, and I tell him it's God's timing. Sometimes we don't understand God, but we can't question his goodness. And I've been blessed to see them grow in their faith. And that's been a blessing for me to see that they haven't become resentful of Christ or their faith because of Saeed, but they've actually grown in their faith.
Oh, that's remarkable. That's so biblical. That's a Paul experience. How often are you able to have contact with him?
Well, the Iranian government hasn't really allowed any contact since January of 2013. And I can't go back and visit him. They've threatened that I would be arrested because I've spoken out, and they consider it a national security. They consider me now against the government. So I can't go back. And my main source of knowing what's going on with my husband is through his parents, his family inside of Iran, who goes and visits him at the prison, but now I get at the hospital. So that's how I get updates on him. And he's been able to get a few letters out to me, and I've been able to send a few messages, but that's been our main form of communication.
What's happening, Naghmeh, what's happening government-wise to get your husband released? What more can we do to support you and help you?
We have had Secretary of State John Kerry make statements. President Obama recently spoke at the prayer breakfast, but that's only because the American people are speaking out. It's become such a huge movement. Millions of Americans have signed petitions, churches have been praying. They've contacted, as you mentioned early on, contacted their legislature, contacted their senators, congressmen, saying this is an important issue for us. And that pressure works, and it gets to our government, gets to our president to know that religious freedom and Christian persecution is an important issue. I'd hoped that after the prayer breakfast, Saeed being mentioned by President Obama, there'd be more of a proactive role in getting him out. But unfortunately, in the last almost 2 years that I've worked with our government, it's been more of a push than really seeing a lot of proactive action from them. So we have to continue to speak out. We have to continue to tell our government we care and not forget about Saeed, continue to pray and speak out to keep him alive and to get him home. That's the only way, outside of prayer, that's the only way to do it, is to continue to speak out.
I know that Jay and Jordan Sekelo are certainly working in your behalf and trying hard to rally Americans and people. Is there any sitting legislator in Congress that has really taken up your cause that we can continue to support?
There's been a lot. There's, our senators, I've met with Senator Cruz and Rand Paul, and many of our senators that have been very vocal. Also, our Congress has been very vocal. I've spoken in front of the Congress for the Tom Lantos human rights. I recently spoke in front of our Foreign Relations Committee. Actually, we've had a lot of supportive congressmen. Some of them have adopted Saeed as a religious freedom issue. I know from Arizona, the congressmen there Phoenix have really picked up Saeed's cause. But, just the more the better, especially asking even our senators. There's been a lot of support in our Congress. So just continuing to reach out to in your region, your congressmen and senators, and saying this is an important issue for us. This is what our country's values have. It's the core of our values, religious freedom, and Christians should be one of. Our president should be speaking about that. We've had him call people of other beliefs in sexuality or otherwise on their stance on abortion and so on. But Christians represent our nation as well, and our president should also pay attention to Christian issues and Christian persecution. And here's an American pastor who has not broken any law. Iran actually has laws that allow for religious freedom, including conversion and peaceful assembly of Christians. So Iran's breaking, and Iran has agreed to international laws that allow for religious freedom. So here's an American citizen who's been held long enough, who's been tortured, while Iran is admittedly breaking their own law and international laws. And our government should be very strict, very aggressive on saying this is not right. He needs to come out. And unfortunately, we've made deals with Iran. We've lifted some sanctions. We've given them over $500 million, but we haven't said this is wrong. You need to return this American pastor.
Well, Naghmeh, you're in our prayers. How can we support you and stay connected? I'd love to have you back again soon, but how can we support you? What can we do for you today?
I appreciate your support. My biggest support is prayer. That has kept me. My faith in Jesus has kept me going. I was devastated when this happened. And through people praying and saying, we're with you, we haven't forgotten you, we haven't forgotten your husband. So I would just ask for more prayer and to contact your local government officials. But it's just been, God has opened so many doors for the gospel through this. And so prayers for the continued open doors. I've spoken in front of 196 nations in the UN. I recently came back from Geneva Summit for Human Rights and Democracy. I was the only Christian speaker there. I got to share the gospel with so many different people and human rights advocates that from different beliefs. And so I was the only Christian there. But so many doors have opened because people have spoken up. I couldn't do this on my own. And I would have not believed that every phone call, every letter, email, one sentence email, sending to your local official counts, and they listen. And I've had so many senators and congressmen telling me that that email made a difference for me to be able to talk to them and meet with them. So your voice counts, and your prayer obviously counts even more. So I would appreciate continued prayers.
Well, I tell you, this is fascinating, and obviously God is even using this for good in many, many ways. You remain in our prayers, your husband remain in our prayers, certainly your family, and let's connect again soon, okay?
I would like that. Thank you so much. God bless.
Blessings to you. All right, we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paula, and I work at theDove TV. Every day we get letters and emails from people who've been encouraged, blessed, and challenged by the programs on theDove TV. But we couldn't do it without you. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to bring inspiration and hope to our community by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or call us at 541-776-5368.
Okay, we're back. You know, one of the great ministries in Southern Oregon is Celebrate Recovery, and Trail Christian Fellowship has one of these outreaches that's just terrific. And they meet on Tuesdays at 6 o'clock there at the church. And I'm delighted to have in the studio with us today Paige Harrison, who is the leader of the Trail Christian Fellowship Celebrate Recovery, and she's brought a very special guest, Nancy Lawton, with her, but I'll let you introduce Nancy in a moment. But nice to see you, Paige.
Thank you.
Nice to see you, Nancy.
Good morning. Thank you.
All right, quickly, tell us about Celebrate Recovery there at Trail. What are you guys doing?
We meet on Tuesdays, as you said, at 6 o'clock for dinner, and we have a testimony or a lesson every other week, and then we break into issue-specific groups where people can share about the things that are going on in their life with other people who are suffering from hurts, habits, and hang-ups of the same type.
Mm-hmm. And so, you've been doing this for quite a while. Tell us, introduce Nancy, and so Nancy can give us her testimony, because it kind of encapsulates everything you do, right?
Absolutely. This is Nancy,
Hi, Nancy.
And she's one of our leaders at our particular, there are 4 or 5 other Celebrate Recoveries in the Medford area as well. She is one of our leaders, and she has an amazing testimony.
How'd you get involved?
Well, about 2.5 years ago, for lack of a better word, you could say I relapsed into some fairly self-destructive behavior that was intended basically to medicate pain in my life that had not been sufficiently dealt with in decades of trying to live successfully with victory in my life, but not understanding what that means. And so what happened was I had a couple of beloved family members suddenly die, less than 2 years apart. My mother and my twin sister. Both of their deaths were absolutely unexpected and sudden, and I do not handle sudden change very well at all. I have a personality type that needs structure and peace and as little stress as possible, and I found those events to be so staggering that my mind just couldn't cope with the pressure that brings, because as circumstances would have it, all of the business-oriented things that go with the death of a loved one fell to me, because that's just the way it happens. You have to deal with people, and you just don't have time to process feelings. So to make a very long story short, I did what I am inclined to do because of my personality type and my personal history. I tried to medicate my pain instead of processing it and dealing it and reaching out to trusted Christian friends. I tried to take the way that the flesh tends to want to go, and that's the path of least resistance. We want the pain to end as soon as possible. And it wasn't long before I just started getting into trouble with trying to over-medicate my pain instead of dealing with it. And because I had had some experience with 12-step programs in the past, I sought that out, but soon learned that they really weren't offering me the kind of victory you need to have in life if you're going to cope with this kind of loss and be equipped to deal with other people's pain in a supportive way, you know, and Celebrate Recovery offers that.
So you ended up back at Celebrate Recovery, which injects the faith factor.
Yes.
Did you go on your own, or were you invited back in? How did that happen?
I went on my own the first couple of times and did what the vast majority of people do. The minute it gets to be a little bit too much or a little bit too complicated, I hit the door and went back home. And after several months, my husband volunteered to come with me. He's been very supportive through this. And for the first several months, he had to actually insist that I go because I really didn't want to be there. I didn't think I needed it. These are the incredible games our minds play with us.
Sure.
They
When was the breakthrough for you?
It was several months in when a step study was offered. They're offered periodically depending on the amount of interest. You know, it takes half a dozen people to really get a successful one off the ground. And I began participating in the 12-step step study, which is quite in depth. It's long term. They typically take 9 to 12 months to complete, and I had a very strong willed and dependable friend who was willing to pull alongside me and meet with me weekly.
Well, that's the key.
And help me.
Yes, it is.
Mentoring and have the people alongside. Yeah,
absolutely.
And it's preferable to be partnered with somebody who is strong enough in personality not to allow you to quit or to allow you to take shortcuts.
So how long was your recovery? A year?
The step study process was about 7 months, so altogether, about a year before I could say, you know, and you never say, well, I'm recovered.
Yeah.
We're in perpetual recovery, but it must take on greater proportions. It can't be just something we're hanging on to by our fingernails. So it does take about a year.
That's what you do.
That's what you do. That's what we do.
And you match mentors with people who need the help, walk them through.
Well, we have leaders. And when you choose a sponsor, that's more of the peer mentoring that goes on.
And what kind of addictions are you dealing with?
We have everything. Any hurt, habit, or hang-up. It's not drugs and alcohol only. We have people with codependency, gambling, overeating, divorce, grief. Any hurt that anybody has can be dealt with at a Celebrate Recovery.
And yours was a little, obviously, grief and over-medicating, right?
Yes.
So the combination of the two. Do you even deal with children?
We do. We actually have a children's program. We have daycare, and we started it used to be called Celebration Station. It's now called Celebration Place. And the children do mirrored lessons to what the adults are learning. So if we're doing the lesson on forgiveness, the children have a children's lesson on forgiveness. And they actually spend 2 weeks on each topic because of the way ours switches from lesson to testimony. They have 2 weeks of lessons on forgiveness. And they actually have questions to ask their parents.
Whoa.
They come home, so they have dialogue starting.
That's wonderful.
Yes, absolutely. There's also a teen program, which we are not blessed to have started that yet, but we're really looking forward to that in the future.
How do you gauge your success, Paige? And I know you have a lot of great stories, but how do you know you're on track with everybody and it's working?
Well, you know, a lot of people come and go, and a lot of times they come back, which is
Nancy.
Yes, exactly. Which is I did the same thing, and many times that's what happens when people step up and get into leadership and start helping other people and giving back. I would say that's a huge gauge of a successful story.
Wow. How long does it take? I mean, somebody has to want to be there, right? I mean,
oh, absolutely.
In your case, your husband was kind of dragging you there for a little while, which was great, but at what point does it go from having to be there to wanting to be there?
I think that's different for everybody.
Yeah.
That has to be different for everybody. I always wanted to be there, but it still took a long time to sink into where I was actually getting something. I felt the need to be there and the desire to be there, but the Lord kept bringing me back, or the Holy Spirit kept nudging me that way, and I kept going back even though I was still drinking. So
where do you put God into the picture?
The whole program is based on Jesus Christ. It takes the secular 12 steps and transforms it biblically.
Okay.
I mean, there is a Bible verse attached to every step and throughout the entire program. There's prayer, there's multiple verses, even in the lessons. The lessons all have mini testimony attached with success stories and Bible verses attached to those as well. We do not claim ourselves as alcoholics or addicts, or that is not our identity. Probably for me, the biggest difference in Celebrate Recovery is that we identify ourselves as a grateful believer of Jesus Christ who is suffering with, and then whatever your hurt, habit, or hang-up is.
I'm so glad to hear that, because sometimes I hear people, I'm this, and I go, do you really want to be that? I thought you could get past that.
You can.
Okay.
You can.
All right, so how many people are involved out there at Trail? How many?
Well, at Trail, we range anywhere from 50 to 80.
Really?
And we're a ways out of town.
Oh, yeah, but that's a big crowd.
It is a big crowd. And we are also blessed that the church allows us to use the van. And Nancy's husband, who is not really part of CR, but he is a wonderful person. And he volunteers to drive the van one way, and we have another fellow. They go to the Dom and pick up a van full of fellows from the Dom so that they can participate as well.
So, what happens in a meeting? What will happen Tuesday night?
Tuesday night, the first thing we do is eat. And
gotta have food.
Gotta have dinner. And then we have about a 20-minute worship where we sing. And we have a different worship group every week. And then we have announcements, and we read, what we are and what we aren't. We read the 12 steps with the Bible verses, or the 8 principles, which are based on the Beatitudes from the Sermon on the Mount.
Wow.
So we trade off with that. And then we have either a lesson or a testimony. Then we break up into small groups where we share. And then we come back together at the end for fellowship for dessert and coffee.
Well, let me encourage you. Celebrate Recovery is a proven course, I guess you could say, to help you. And the response and the results has just been terrific. Some of the stories I hear from the various groups around the valley has just been fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Amazing. And you know what I like about it most? I mean, you guys are living examples of this. Whatever God saves you from brings you through. He turns around and makes you a minister too. You've been there, done that.
Yes.
Been there, done that. You both have the T-shirt on, so right?
Right.
And it takes one to help one.
That's right.
And so it's an amazing way to really get some healing. If you know somebody that's struggling, maybe you're struggling. And what is it? The help, the hurt, the what?
Hurts, habits, and hang-ups.
Hurts, habits, and hang-ups. That pretty much covers it all.
Covers everything.
It's amazing you're not 500 people on a Tuesday night. That pretty much takes us all in. But anyway, if you're struggling in any of those areas, Tuesday night, out there at Trail at 6 o'clock, and Paige and Nancy will be there to greet you, and some good things happen. I just want to say thanks for sharing with us and what you guys are doing. Nancy, your testimony is fascinating, to say the least, and now you're leading.
Well, I am. All of my life, I imagined that I would have some sort of ministry, some way to give back. But I had to learn the same way the vast majority of people do. It takes a lot of pain for God to bring out in us our area of giftedness. It's not when things are going well. That is not when you say, I'm going to plug into ministry and really help.
All right.
We have to be broken.
All right. Tuesday nights out at Trail at 6 o'clock. Celebrate recovery. Go out and see Paige and Nancy and get help, okay? Thanks, ladies, for coming in.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Hi, I'm Jim, and I work at theDove TV. Every weekday between 6 and 8 a.m., our award-winning news and sports team bring you the best morning show around. It's live, it's honest, and it's a whole lot of fun. And you help make it happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to air local programs that share your voice by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us.